Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Chris Tompkins from Rusty Software. Thanks so much for joining today. It's morning 3 of the gathering. We've had a lot of great sessions this week, and this is one I'm particularly excited to move into. I've gathered some of our friends around. We've got Stephen, Gavin, and Gary here, all of which will introduce themselves in just a moment. But all four of us are spending quite a lot of our professional life playing with AI, integrating it, in the case of myself and Gavin, into products that we think customers will be using that include AI. And then Stephen and Gary are kind of on the other side of the coin. They are using products to build compelling content that pushes things out into the world. So today's format is a little more relaxed. Those of you who know any four of us aren't surprised by that format. I'm probably overly casual in my professional life, but we have a chat running where you can ask questions. Please feel to do that. If we have time at the end, we will certainly get into them. But mostly I'm going to put some prompts out with the hopes that Gavin and I can talk a little about AI and products, and Stephen and Gary can talk a little more about how they're using it for content. But here's why the four of us matter. So as I go through, I think I'm going to just hand the mic around. I'm Chris, the moderator of today's discussion. I just get to drive the car, but the other three here are far more interesting to give their opinions than I am. Been at Rusty a long time, over 13 years. Been working through all types of different customers, including SANS and AICPA, who are here today. So thank you to our loyal customers that are willing to talk about this stuff with us. And I think Gary and Stephen have some interesting things for us. With that, Stephen, if you don't mind going first, introduce yourself. Tell us a little about what you've been working on.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Stephen Kalnoske. I'm the lead product development engineer at SANS Institute. SANS is a cybersecurity research, training, and certification organization. And I am on the innovation team. It's a small team that we basically test out technologies from their inception and see if they would work in products. And so AI-based, we've been digging into AI for over 2 years now, even before ChatGPT. But we've been lucky enough to basically start AI at its inception in SANS and do the whole rollout, training, and enablement for SANS, and now for consumer-facing products as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephen. Next on our list, Gary works with AICPA and CIMA. Tell us a little about yourself and what you're working on.
Thanks, Chris. Name's Gary Lamach. With the AICPA and CIMA, we are the largest professional association for accounting and finance professionals globally, through our footprint with the AICPA in the United States and various countries around the world with the CPA designation. And our CIMA organization represents the CGMA qualification globally. What I do there is I oversee our learning portfolios to ensure that we are kind of shaping the future of the accounting and finance industry, making sure that we're giving timely upskilling to those professionals in the association community.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate the time.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
Certainly not least, but a friend of mine, Gavin's with us today. He's at a sister company to LTG within PeopleFluent. Gavin's been working on some interesting AI stuff. Why don't you introduce yourself a little for us?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chris, and hi, everyone. It's great to be part of the panel today. My name is Gavin Beddow. I'm VP of Product at PeopleFluent. We specialize in talent management, talent development, and learning products as part, as Chris said, of the Learning Technologies Group. My role as VP of Product looks at our product strategy and the processes we use for how we develop our products and innovate them and solve our customer pain points. I work with leadership teams for each of those products and the product managers as well to ensure that we're aligning our quarterly planning and strategy around our broader goals for each product, but also against our broader business mission. We are part of Learning Technologies Group and have actually been with the group since 2011. So whilst I've been doing this role within the group for the last 3 years, actually I've spent most of my time since then or prior to that working in the GOMO authoring tool. So originally was part of the launch of GOMO authoring, and then oversaw the product strategy and development of that product, and was also the MD of that division for a couple of years. But yeah, then moved into PeopleFluent, which is what I'm doing now. Great to meet you all.
Well, thanks for being here, Gavin. So between the four of us, we're all kind of lucky enough to be the folks at our organization that get to go play with the new toys and push things forward. So super grateful for your time. I know all of us get pulled in a lot of different directions with these roles, but I think today is an interesting moment for us to come up for air a little bit, talk more about how we're using these tools, where we think they're going to go. And in order to give it some structure, I've just created a few prompting questions here. So as we talk through it today, guys, I'll present the question. I'll do my best to make sure that we're passing the mic back and forth. But if you all want to argue with one another in front of all of us, I think that that's cool too. So let's see where we go. I'm interested with each of you with what problems were you trying to solve by using AI? And I know it's a broad question, but I think I'd like to start with Stephen and then Gary to talk a little more on the content side. Hey, what's interesting, what's exciting there? So Stephen, if you don't mind going first, what problems was SAN looking to solve, or were you just holding a hammer and making everything a nail?
It became pretty self-evident what we could do with AI. One of the big problems that we had that we were trying to solve is what is in our content. And that kind of feels silly for like a training company to say like what's in our content, but like we had 80 courses that are highly technical, written by a variety of instructors that don't talk to each other really and everything like that. So it was a big challenge. Like, if we had a client that came in and like, they want to take cybersecurity courses on such and such topic, there was no centralized kind of like, here's the content that you take. So basically breaking down all our content and then asking our content what's in it. We started to see patterns and we started to see content overlap that we never would have seen without AI and without doing all these mapping processes. And also now we're able to prove to clients that like, if they are looking for a specific, 200 job tasks that they want their people trained on, we can actually go into the content now and have a very defined map of like, down to like a role, person who wants to, be able to configure firewalls. Well, that's in, slide whatever of this content now. So it's really given us a deep dive and a great map of what our content is.
And I'm curious, what were you guys doing before you were doing this? Was that all just a manual process? Did
someone would spend,
oh no.
Someone would spend 2 weeks control effing through lab manuals and stuff like that to make a map of it. So we've taken 2 weeks and we put it into like 2 hours now. So it's been a huge help.
So you save time, you eliminate work that no one wants to be doing. Like exactly. I can't imagine anyone wakes up Monday morning eager to spend 2 weeks searching through content, right? Like, so you remove work that no one wants to do and increase speed at the same time.
Absolutely.
Cool. Gary, if I take it over on your side, I know Stephen just said he has, like 80 courses to search through. What's the size of your library and what were you trying to solve using AI?
Yeah, we're close to 1,000 courses. So the content curation piece that Stephen's kind of alluding to and categorization is definitely something that it's kind of helped us with, even just like tagging our content, going through and kind of like mapping to fields of study has been a tremendous help to us. What we really try to do is, I'm trying to eliminate more and more routine tasks that our teams kind of function in the learning development space, so we can really kind of focus on those more creative endeavors, making cool experiences, making more interactive content, right, that really requires kind of the human touch. We've found that we can really reduce our time on kind of like routine tasks, tagging content, writing exam questions, knowledge checks. Kind of automating those things really allow our teams to kind of divert their focus into the more creative endeavors.
Nice. And I would assume much like SAN's eliminating work that no one wanted to do. Like what were you guys doing before you adopted this strategy? Was it a lot of
everything was yeah, everything was manual tagging, fields of study, making sure, exactly the same issues that Stephen kind of talks about. We're limited to kind of using our course descriptions to identify content that's in there if we don't have subject matter experts that we can reach out to immediately, or authors that we can reach out to immediately. With the content library of that size, AI really helps us kind of sift through all of that content and better target for our learners and our customers.
Nice, thanks. So as we flip to the product side, Gavin, you're out building cool tools that we hope get in the hands of people like Stephen and Gary.
Trying
Talk
to,
a little about some of the things you were trying to solve using AI.
yeah. I mean, it's quite a broad area, but I think if you look at the core aspect of it, we're looking to how we can solve real human problems, and the aspects of how we can improve the customer experience for how individuals and managers, administrators, and end users as well, for that matter, engage with our products. Specific focus areas for me are looking at how we can reduce some of the items that the other guys have covered in terms of reducing labor-intensive tasks, and how we can leverage greater insight as well into the data our products gather. So, reducing common things that people need to do in our products day in, day out, and looking at how we can either use AI to augment and accelerate that. Content categorizations is a great example. So, a whole bunch of different things to make it easier for our products to use.
Awesome, thanks. I guess if I round out this question from the Rusticy side, certainly, like, I'm leading some witnesses here as we talk, but we're trying to build tools that take a lot of work off the plate of people who don't want to be doing that work. Like, this doesn't come as a broad surprise. Rusticy solves a SCORM and e-learning standards problem that we're just sure no one wants to spend their time doing. There are easier ways to spend human hours on things. So some of what we're doing is trying to fuel Gary and Stephen's need to manage large libraries, tag things consistently, add semantic search to a course, being able to sift through your catalog and find the pieces and parts and components that need to be updated next. So I think broadly, AI is a pretty good use of that type of data. And to Gary's point, having AI consistently tag a course for skills or proper metadata, the consistency is key, because having 3 different people read a course and add different tags based on how they felt that afternoon isn't as repeatable and searchable as having AI do it. So I think that there's some real economies of scale there that should delight a lot of folks who have tools that have these things baked in, because now you don't have to go do that work yourself. As we move to the next question here, so this is going to kind of split, I think, for Gary and Stephen. How did you get started? How did you convince your organization to take this step? How did you get buy-in? Gavin, when I get to you, we're going to talk a little more about the vendor side. So to mix it up a little, Gary, I'm going to put you on the spot if you don't mind going first. I know you're a large organization with a lot of internal politics. How did you navigate the buy-in?
It's really about making it a cross-functional decision, right? Making sure that the benefit can be realized across the association, collaborating with our IT department to ensure that we're executing these tools in a way that they're comfortable with, working with finance to make sure that they understand the eventual savings that we can apply directly to our products by using these tools. And getting that kind of like cross-functional buy-in really helps kind of supercharge the initiative, and making sure that kind of like all concerns are met. We really, and then kind of like running mini pilots just to see what the true impact is. Just small tests here and there. If we have an idea of where we can use AI, let's put it to the test. Let's see what really happens. Let's see what the impact is. And let's see what our potential pitfalls are before we kind of like try and roll out, an entire policy across the association.
Brick by brick, right?
Yeah, it's step at a time.
Yeah, Thanks. Stephen, you're in a similar but different situation. I'm curious within SANS, I know you're part of an innovation team and maybe this is just your broad charter, but I'm curious, how did you get buy-in and how did you push things forward?
Yeah, so I think the whole buy-in and rollout of, we're OpenAI customers, enterprise ones, but really to get started, I'm a big fan of POCs and actual real things that people can touch and people can interact with. That was a huge part of getting buy-in. Not just anybody can go on like ChatGPT and like, oh look, we can make song limericks out of our training content now, but like making POCs to upper leadership that they can actually see how this could integrate with our products and what it could give us was a huge help. After that, once we realized it had legs, really we kind of like hit pause organizational wise, made time to make a really good like AI policy, made time to develop really good AI training so that when we rolled it out to all the organization, and we really do want all of the organization using this kind of stuff, people were in a great position not to just be like let loose on these AI products, but really like, they get trained on what prompt writing is, what bias is, and rolling it out like that, and then keep people engaged with it. We have show and tell sessions all the time where people bring in all what they've been working on in terms of AI in our products and everything like that. So it's been hugely successful, not just internally, but once we did all this, we realized this is a product. Like we can sell this, in a kind of like security-minded framework, and that's what we've done.
Awesome.
Stephen, I'm totally gonna turn one of my courses into a song now after that.
A lullaby? I mean,
depends on the course. Yeah,
exactly.
There. As we flip to the vendor side, Gavin, I'm going to go first here, but why should platform vendors consider adding AI solutions to help their customers? I mean, first and foremost, like I think all customers are looking to products and saying, hey, are you using AI? And maybe it's just products shoving it on people. We see a lot of hype behind it. And in some ways, there's that chart of adoption where you kind of hit a peak and then you go into the trough of disillusionment of, oh no, none of this stuff's actually working. And now we're kind of back at a level of functional good. And I'm excited about it. For us, we think we want to offload work that no one wants to be doing. I think AI is really, really good at shoveling a lot of this and parsing a lot of things that would just take humans a very long time. There's a fun quote I love that if you had 4 hours to cut down a tree, you should spend the first 3 sharpening the axe. Like we could certainly have a lot of heavy axes and a lot of humans going and doing this work, but this feels like a really sharp tool that should add value to products by saving customers a lot of time and offloading a lot of work no one wants to be doing anyway. Gavin, I'm curious how that impacts your side of things as you innovate and build new tools.
I think you put across some really key points there, Chris. Certainly, as we, as PeopleFluent and I guess other software vendors as well, is like looking to try and avoid that moment of just tacking on AI just to tick the RFP box and moments like that. But I think the key value as you start to consider AI solutions, and certainly this is how we look at it at PeopleFluent, is when we're looking at trying to solve a problem or we're having conversations with customers and trying to understand their pain points, is we go through plenty of ideation and exploration as to how we might solve them, how we can take one client's problem and make it valuable to the broad number of customers that use our products or maybe a particular feature. And I think in there it's seeing AI as another technology consideration for how we use it. Sometimes you see products where it's not valuable, and that curve that you mentioned, it's there just for the sake of it. But then really there is other areas as well where it can improve the experience, save time on the work that people don't want to be doing, or just reduce, you know, the burden of those tasks that are necessary. Content categorization is a perfect one. If you look at, you know, at LMSs, and we've got one at PeopleFluent, and you know, actually implementing features that can go through and save the burden of categorizing content that's sometimes coming from multiple sources as well, from third-party content libraries directly within the LMS itself, can be a huge time and cost saving for the business. So really, it's looking at those moments where it adds value, and you know, from administration to creating enjoyable and meaningful and rewarding content experiences too.
Nice. Thanks. All right. As we kind of progress through here, I feel like we've discussed a little of this already, so I don't want to reiterate any of these things. Think at this point in the questioning, like as we go through it, have you used it? Obviously, all four of us have kind of talked about it, but I'm looking for, do you have any real world examples of how this was super helpful, anecdotes to go with it? It may be somewhat repetitive to our first question, but let's talk about it and open it up. Stephen, you want to go first on this one if I put you on the spot?
Yeah, so really this is used differently organization-wide, but in learning and development, we've seen huge benefits in our question writing for content. When people go in and write questions, we can run it through a multi-step AI process where, you know, it fixes distractors. It goes back to the content and sees whether the questions can be answered by the content or not. So lots of checks and balances that are kind of like automated, and that has made content, and especially like question writing, open-ended question writing, really good. One of our also big success stories is we've been able to move transcription for like VTT files and all that kind of stuff completely in-house. We used to utilize like third-party companies for that with human review. By moving it in-house and working it directly into our content production process, we're actually getting much better results just sometimes without even human review than we were getting with human review on that.
Fascinating. All right. You can say, I don't know, but I'm curious, were the translation costs more or less than the AI costs to do?
Significantly more. Yeah.
Okay. So time savings, better content, cheaper outcome. Like that feels like the triple bottom line that really drives a big success story in any technology, AI included. Like,
yeah. So it was 2 weeks, 2 to 5 weeks, and many dollars gone down to like, you know, minutes now and pennies cents.
Huge success story.
Yeah.
Awesome. Gary, I want to toss it over to you. I'm curious if you've got any anecdotes here of it being a huge win on your side.
Yeah, similarly, we've used it for question generation, and it's been a game changer. You know, part of our compliance trainings require kind of like extensive knowledge check creation with kind of like explanation for each correct and incorrect answer, and where, you know, each question would take a subject matter expert 15-20 minutes to write. I mean, we can generate a list of kind of stems for subject matter experts to be able to review and use in minutes instead. That's been a huge help for us. The content tagging that we alluded to earlier has also been a game changer for us. And like you said, for consistency, but also kind of like evaluating content for kind of like new needs in the market. You know, kind of like when we talk about accounting and finance, you know, like tax and audit, it's easier to tag. But as we look at kind of like emerging markets and emerging needs within the market, kind of like that tagging and evaluating the content for that tagging has really been helpful to see what we have there, see where our gaps in our learning is, and to create new opportunities for products in those areas. And I think, you know, if we talk a little bit more about where I see like kind of it moving in the future, you know, we've been playing a little bit with kind of like even using it as a brainstorming tool for new content creation, and we've seen a lot of success there.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks.
Just to jump on real quick, what Gary alluded to
yeah, go
question
for it, man.
writing. Yeah, people underestimate, like, question writing is hard. Like sitting down and writing 200 good questions about a course is hard. And so, like Gary said, like, you have to rely heavily on subject matter experts. And so that's where AI has been a huge help for us there too.
Yeah. Just it's such a time savings too, which, I mean, automatically results in a cost savings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to segue here, but I can do what I want. I'm the MC. I'm curious, like, I feel there's got to be some type of interaction. And this might be something Gavin even comments on here in just a minute, but like, you can use it. I would assume, Gary, Stephen, quick question. Do you trust 100% of what it gives you back and you just run with it?
No,
So,
I mean, we never cut and paste.
Yeah. Stephen, same thing. I'm just making a point here.
No, and we make it as a rule that anything it outputs, it always has to cite its sources of where it got it from. That's a big thing for us.
So
we want that traceability.
Just use AI and accept the results as good enough is not good enough, which leads us
for
to
content generation and for like anything that goes to like a consumer facing product or whatever like that. Absolutely not.
Yeah,
no,
awesome.
There's always either a human in the loop or a big bibliography of where it got it from.
Human in the loop is super crucial because it takes us to kind of the second level, which is, look, force lifting all of this weight and sifting through all of these courses and creating content is human time that is massive. But humans can edit and select very efficiently from a set of correct answers. So here are the 3 answers that might exist and let you guys pick from them. So you're letting it generate content and then selecting and editing from it. Is that a true statement, Gary?
Yes, and really kind of like pointing in the direction as well, identifying areas of content, mapping to the content, mapping the questions to the content, and really using it primarily as almost like a brainstorming tool. I mean, I've been in roles where I've had to write kind of like high stakes tests before, and as Stephen kind of alluded, it takes a ton of time.
Yeah.
It really does. So just even having this tool as a resource to kind of focus thoughts when writing questions is even a huge benefit.
But I've watched AI look at a video, transcribe it, do all the things, and some of the assessment questions are, what color was Gary's shirt?
Right. Right.
Great question to see if I'm paying attention, but not relevant for a high stakes training assessment.
Exactly.
Cool. So I think human plus AI is at the current state. I don't feel like any of these tools are full on trust and faith that AI will help us. It is a sharper axe. It is not a robot cutting down trees.
I would 100% agree with that.
Cool.
Agreed. Yes.
I'm going to go on to our next question then. So, working in high compliance and technical industries, are AI good enough for your content? This is kind of the question I was already pushing on. What are you using there to make sure that this is good enough? Do you guys have a human in the loop review process, or help us understand if you don't trust it out of the gate? We've just established that. What is your rubric? Stephen, if you don't mind going first, I'll put it on you.
Yeah, well, we basically never let it, and I'm talking about OpenAI, API, those models, use its own knowledge. Everything that we put in to the model, and when we're doing question writing or whatever like that, we put in all our content that we wanted to work with into the context first and say my grandmother will be very sad if you don't, just use this content, like those kind of AI prompting tricks and all that kind of thing. The other thing is to ensure that material is accurate, we are very transparent organizationally where we use AI and where we don't. So anything like we're generating learning objectives, summaries, topic lists, all these kind of AI artifacts in there, we're tagging them as AI generated too. So when we feed them into other systems, when people are looking at them, it's very clear what is AI and what is not AI. So we can kind of keep that in our minds as we go about working with all this data.
All right. So you and the Sans AI have a shared love for your grandmother's feelings is the
Exactly.
note I'm
Yes.
walking
Very
away.
important.
Awesome.
It's
Gary,
fabulous,
I'll toss it over to
we're
you.
2 years into like using all this AI, but like those are still the tricks that work.
Yeah,
I
no
will be
one
very
wants to
sad. You will
upset
get a
Stephen's
cookie.
grandmother.
Yeah, similarly, we don't do pure content creation with AI. It's really a tool to assist the human, the proverbial human in the loop. We still rely heavily on subject matter experts to review, evaluate, rewrite the output of AI. And we also, like Seaman said, we limit the pool to our own content, and that content has been generated by human authors.
Awesome. Thanks. I think that's really fascinating, right? We're not at the place where robots are taking over the world yet. We're at the place where like, hey, we'll let you go do some work and then we're gonna check in on it.
Yeah, I mean, I liken it to, like we all remember, Clippy in Microsoft Word, right? Like we all,
Ding, ding, ding.
it's a tool that helped us, right? It didn't necessarily do the work for us. Like we're just at a point where, the tools can do more for us. I just saw Clippy pop up in the chat. I love it.
That was really fun.
They can do a little more for us now and assist us even more.
Yeah. Awesome. Where do you think AI can most help content creators and platforms? So we're gonna kind of split it apart here, and as a vendor, I might have an opinion around it. I want to go in reverse. We've neglected Gavin, so Gavin, if you don't mind talking a little here, as you're thinking through how do humans and AI interoperate within a product? We've established that it is a necessary link. I'm curious how you're thinking about this and how you're driving things forward to assist folks like Gary and Stephen.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Actually, I think the answers to the prior questions provide some great insights to the areas that, as a software developer and product developer, that we absolutely should be thinking about. And I think for me, it's key that we're looking at certainly at this stage of AI, and whilst the technologies are developing very quickly and we get new LLM models out every what feels like week, if not day, it sure is developing fast, but we do need that human intervention and review moment. But I think equally that's where some really main and key opportunities exist too. So hey, if you think about the work that you guys are doing right now with the AI tools that you're investigating and experiencing, we absolutely will be utilizing similar things and probably Rusty Tech as well, to be honest with you. But looking at how we can take the collective knowledge that an organization might have, and it could be passing existing content courses, but it also can be passing materials that exist, in the broader network of systems, and then actually using that to accelerate the content development process in whatever means, way, or form that is necessary, but actually building that out on the knowledge and not just the general knowledge that an LLM may have, but taking textbooks and all that other stuff and being able to write guides, or even creating lesson plans and structures for content that you may then end up creating and writing. Question creation is a great example, a great opportunity to explore too, and it's one that we're doing right now at PeopleFluent, is understanding the content that we've got within the system and within connected platforms. And then through one of the experiences we're building out is, whilst it's not a formal assessment, but is building out informal quizzing experiences, right, to test knowledge retention and in practice scenarios and things like that. So after you've completed a after you've completed a course or maybe a program or a pathway, being able to serve up questions, time-based eventually for us, but being able to serve up questions that have been created by AI, reviewed, of course, but being able to serve those up and test, knowledge retention on that subject, that skill, or the content itself. But plenty of opportunity there. But yeah, certainly would want to avoid mass content creation and just relying wholly on AI, because it does lack that human creativity moment too, and certainly can lead to content mediocrity, and we've probably all seen a lot of that.
Got it. I'll speak from the vendor side. Like, Rusticy's intention here is to help do things at scale. Like, I would be surprised if you've made it into day 3 of the gathering, but Rusticy's behind the scenes in a lot of the e-learning transactions and doing some of what I view as mundane work around consistent tagging, consistent skills and competency mapping, consistent ways to search and do things. It's our goal to permeate some of that out into every e-learning product. As much as standards matter and how content plays nice with other learning platforms, some consistency, some kind of undercurrent in the industry of doing this in a roughly similar way should help us with some of the next steps for this industry, which are mapping skills, competencies to outcomes, doing talent mobility within organizations. Some of the biggest ideas that came out 25 years ago when AICC and SCORM were being created could be enabled by products using AI in a hive-minded way. And I get pretty excited about that. As I flip over to Gary and Stephen here on the content side, now that you've kind of got a foothold, you've got buy-in from your organization, it's working. I'm curious about what you're excited about next, or where you think this is going to help content creators most. Gary, you mind going first?
Yeah, sure. I really think the future is going to be kind of ideation to productization. And, how does AI kind of like uniquely drive each step of that process? Right now, the ideation phase, it's a huge benefit in brainstorming and kind of, we spoke a little bit earlier about kind of like content creation, kind of like evaluating what you already have to make sure that you're not duplicating efforts. As we move more into productization, kind of like creating learning experiences that are more interactive, chat bots that are live on screen at all times to take you back to sections of the course where you're not necessarily 100% clear on the content, or you don't really understand why you got that question wrong. So you want to go back and review that material immediately, or have it pop up on the screen for you because you're not 100% sure. Kind of like that real-time feedback loop while you're going through the course, I think is a great future iteration. When it comes to really like kind of like the development side of the course itself, putting content into, a course development tool, and having it kind of like rough spec or map out the learning experience for you, so you can just go in and edit and move around, right? Like, hey, I want to drag and drop here the what I want on the left side, here's what I want on the right side, create it for me. Something as simple as that. And I think as we see these tools progress and become embedded in these tools, I think we'll see much better end products because of their assistance, because you're able to do things that would normally take too long. You can do it much faster.
Cool. Stephen, if I kick it over to you.
Yeah, I'd say just basically what Gary answered, but I would just add accelerated to both those sides, like, accelerated ideation, accelerated productization. It really is a force multiplier for when you're using these things. For content creators, especially kind of like learning content creators, I think it unlocks so much more possibility. Like, have you ever wondered why, every one of your quizzes that is in Articulate is like multiple choice? It's because like, long form and short answer and fill in the blank and all these other kind of like assessment-based stuff is really hard to grade when you're, giving these things out and don't have a person to like, individually grade answers days later. We've been able to start experimenting with all these kind of like learning things where, so much of our training is like, teaching good people to do bad things for good. Like, teaching people how to pen test and socially engineer people to like, reveal flaws in your organization. So like we've hooked up like an AI chatbot like Twilio that will like call you and like, you can practice socially engineering a bot, over the phone and things like that. Some stuff like, we just never been able to do before all this.
Love it. That's a great answer. Thank you. I think I'm going to jump around a little bit and kind of move to some questions that are showing up in chat. And I think I want to combine two questions. Stephen, while you're still on my screen, I'm interested in, hey, high level drawn in crayon, what are the inputs and outputs? What I mean by that is like, did you build your own LLM from scratch? Did you find a brand that suits you well? How married to it are you, and will you switch? And then I think Sean asked a great question about, well, what are you actually publishing out on the other side? Is it HTML5? Is it in a standard? I'm curious, Stephen, if you can talk us through in and out.
Yeah, so we very much shied away from going too deep into like open source, self-hosted LLMs, all this kind of stuff. We sought out OpenAI. We're a big customer of theirs. We've kind of built an ecosystem around there, and we're very happy with them. And they serve a purpose. It's so cheap now. We just haven't been caught in the rat race of like OpenAI now. Claude has this new thing, and then we have to switch over to that, and like ping pong back and forth. In terms of inputs and outputs, we are much more about taking all our materials and creating data structures around them, data structures that can be consumed by other things afterwards. We are much more interested in having well-defined schemas of what courses are and the information around them than having kind of like artifacts that's created on like on the first pass. So we have a huge database of every single course in our library that has a well-defined scheme and a well-defined structure that we created with the help of AI, but that has been a huge help in feeding downstream applications to use that, because now we have just a consistent data source that we can use downstream.
Love it. Gary, I'll kick it over to you. Can you talk a little bit about inputs and outputs? I imagine you're in a slightly different place as more of a consumer of AI than a developer of AI, which I would call Stephen on that side of the coin. So I think your perspective might be particularly interesting.
Yeah, we use primarily Copilot to develop most of our tools. We were already in the Microsoft Azure system, so it was an easy port for us. And working, with our IT teams to create those kind of like discrete tools. Ours is really about time saving and creating a better end product. We do use some kind of AI-driven products that help us content create with digital avatars and aspects like that just to enhance the learner experience.
Excellent, thanks. Gavin, I'm curious, as you use tools that are kind of one step removed, right? You're hoping to attract users of your product that interact with AI. What are some of the inputs and outputs that you're considering as you build next gen things?
Starting obviously with the technology and how we integrate that into the products. So at the moment, some of the work that we're doing is with the AWS Bedrock tech stack and Claude specifically right now, and that was through process of evaluation, but designing flexibility into our products so that we can pivot and evolve as these things change and take place, obviously is a key component of how we approach, the design of our applications and systems for any technology, in that regard. But unlocking and utilizing AI is across a broad spectrum of things, really. So part of the administration that we touched on earlier, content categorization and all of those areas that we're exploring today. And then also on from the output side and the end user experiences, things like I mentioned around the practice experience. So being able to serve those up on course completion or as people are working towards progressing skills. And then through other experiences within that in just serving up recommendations and being able to ask questions of content or groups of content, if you think of it as knowledge bases of stuff, and trying to extract more specific insights or information that end users and learners are looking for that might exist in some of the content, but without having to go through all of those courses as well.
Cool. Thanks. As I think through, Rusticy's got a similar strategy. We're using AWS tools. Ours are integrated products. So, we sell to people like Stephen and Gary, and they go and use our tools. So it's kind of the chain of command there. I have a cool fitness ring, and it has AI, and I can ask it some questions, and they just trust that it's giving me the right answers. And that's my interaction with it. It's good enough. I'm curious, Gavin, like, how far through the interactivity are you hoping to build? Are you going to let humans select and edit? Or are you going to give enough prompt where we can invoke Stephen's grandmother so that it feels nicer? I'm curious, like, what level of pass-through do you think your products will have in the market?
I think certainly for the time being, it will be the select and edit. Certainly in the administration side and those kind of experiences. So question generation has been a good example of that. We know it won't get it all right. It hopefully won't ask about what shirt Gary was wearing and things like that. But we want to always provide that human intervention point with those experiences, or anything that we serve up as content experiences within our platforms. Other things may be a bit more broader and a degree of trust, but I think some of that can be controlled, or the areas that we're looking at can be controlled through things like content gating, or providing groupings such as thinking of them as collective knowledge bases. So, channeling prompt experiences, or ways that you can ask questions of content through control mechanisms to make sure that it's responding based on the source of materials that you've provided it as that source, rather than just making stuff up. So
cool. Thanks. Great answer. All right. So we're going to start to wrap this up a little. And I guess as a parting thought for each of you, challenges are fine. Like, we have a lot of folks here that are probably thinking about AI for the first time, either in their content or building a product. Rusticy kind of serves both audiences here. Just rapid fire. If there's a lesson you wish you had known before you began tinkering with it, what is it? Stephen, I'll let you kick us off.
It's a hard one. I can't say that we would have done anything. Not that we're perfect or whatever like that, but I think
you're flawless.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would just say, like, the challenges that we've had to overcome, just making sure everybody is using it in a good way here, and that we've trained people on how to be positive about AI use, and making sure that use AI for. I'll go back to, like, every time we go to DevLearn, like, it seems like, people just slap a, now powered by AI sticker on their product. And like, we've been big on, like, use AI for what AI is used for. Don't let it be like a tool that is, like, not good for the job. And so that's one of the big challenges we've had to face.
Yeah. Follow-up question. Now, when you ask it to not upset your grandmother, is it specifically your grandmother, or just grandmothers in general as a super move there?
It seems to work well either way. Grandmothers make a puppy sad, those are, it really doesn't want to do those.
I just thought it might be helpful if you've developed a relationship and it particularly likes your grandmother, we could get better results, right?
But no joke, there is research that by being very nice to it gives you better results.
I agree. One of my policies at Rusticy is that we must talk to AI as if it is a valued colleague. That way, when the robots rise up, I've been a champion since day one. So
exactly,
don't squish me. Gary, I'll kick it over to you. Is there anything you wish you had known?
I think there's one, just kind of piece of advice that I can give everyone too, is just never get locked into the current state of whatever tool you're working in. So make sure that there's always room to adapt as the technology evolves, and kind of ensure that your processes and your protocols internally kind of allow for that flexibility. You never know what tomorrow is going to bring with AI, and I think knowing that upfront is extremely important as you're developing systems to work with it.
Curious, did you have any assistance on this slide using AI?
I was an early adopter of AI, so therefore, that is an early version of an AI headshot generator. My more current one, if anybody goes to my LinkedIn page, is much more lifelike, which is also AI generated in full
It
transparency.
knew that that's your favorite shirt.
It knew, right?
Hey man, you don't need help. You're already above us all, bro. Thanks for your insight. Appreciate it. Gavin, as I turn it over to you, you're innovating new products. You're neck deep in this stuff. I know you're in the middle of building things. What do you wish you'd known in advance?
That's a tough one to answer, because in my role, and part of what gets me out of bed every day is actually the process of ideation, innovation, and exploring what options are possible. So we have gone through a lot of discovery, investigating technologies, but also experiences, that are valuable when looking at what we're trying to solve and the pain points we're trying to address with our products. And I don't think I'd change any of that, to be honest. We will continue to do it, in fact. So, but I think Gary mentioned a good point about not being too wedded to specific technologies, and that's certainly, not advice, because I think it goes without saying, but it's certainly the thing that, I would always want to ensure, and we do ensure in the products that we're building, is that it's going to change, right? It changes so quickly and rapidly. The technology, Bedrock via Claude that we're using today probably won't be the foundation technology set, or maybe some iteration of it at least, that we'll be using in 6 months' time. It's just moving so quickly, and new capabilities are getting unlocked all the time that we will absolutely want to exploit and make use of to, service the needs of customers and build better products. That, we have to be able to, we have to build that need for pivoting or evolving or changing fundamentals behind the scenes to achieve that. So not so much change, but certainly, how I would think about approaching things to give us the best chance in the future.
Yeah. From our side, looking at it, I think there's a big unknown in the room, which is also like customer, in the case of Gary and Stephen, leadership's tolerance for risk here. We don't know everything that we put in there. And Rustici works with some large brands right now that are saying, hey, you need to sign this and certify that none of our data is making it into any type of AI tool. Don't touch it. But in some ways, those same brands are looking at us and saying, well, what is your plan for AI? And so we're in a conundrum here of everybody is wanting everyone else to be doing these things, but no one wants their data to leak and get out and go into the world. And so I think Stephen raised a really good point of like, let's think positively about this. Let's put some guardrails in place. Let's protect our data, but let's go use it. Gary's been able to summon the same thing. And Gavin, I feel like on the vendor side, it's really up to us to not only build interactivity at the 3 different levels we've discussed, take it, get what you get and don't pitch a fit, select from a list, or prompt engineer so that we can be kind to the AI and let it serve our grandma's needs. I think working with customers and continuing that conversation is going to be really important on the vendor side. We haven't made it to all of the questions. There are some great ones in here. Given the structure of today's event, we are going to wrap this. Thank you all to Stephen, Gary, and Gavin. I'm proud to call you guys friends. Thanks for taking the time today. Really, really grateful that you would bring your expertise to the table and be so willing to kind of just talk through things. From a programming note, we have the ability to continue this conversation. I will be joining a table after this. So I know that there are open questions in here around ecosystems and processes. Sam and Waleed have been very participatory in our chat here today, and I want to talk through those things with you. So if you have some extra time after this session and want to have a little more casual conversation, some of us will be joining that table, and I'm happy to answer all of those questions in more of a conversational style. Regardless, thank you for attending today's event. Really, really grateful not only to the folks who participated on this panel, but also to those who decided to take time out of their day to join us to hear how people are working with AI. There's still some great programming left in today's session. Be sure to jump on to your next thing, and we'll catch you at the next one. Thanks everybody so much. I really appreciate your engagement today.
Thank you, everyone.